Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome into the sports show. We are live on Wbontv and also on the radio stations of Wallingford Broadcasting. Jamie Boggs, Michael Watkins here with you on another Monday night. And Jamie, we've seen a lot happen in the last week, sports-related, non-sports-related. Now everybody in Kentucky, it is a mandate that you must wear a mask. And, I was in Tennessee for a couple of days, and down there, everybody's wearing masks. It was mandatory before it was even mandatory here in Kentucky. So I don't really have a problem with that. I've seen a lot of people on the Facebook mafia coming out and saying they're not going to wear a mask or they're not going to support businesses that make you wear one. I just want this virus to go away. And whatever we can do, our little part to help that happen. I'm not a doctor. I can't come up with a vaccine or something to make this thing go away or to help you survive it. But if wearing a mask when I go out to the grocery store helps, I'm going to do that. That's the way I look at it right now, is to do whatever little part that we can to make this thing go away.
Yeah, I feel the same way. If we want sports, if we want to go to the movies, if we want to go to school on time, we have to do something. So if you're interested in all those things, I think it's worth it, even if you don't agree with the mandate, to give it a shot and see if it works. I don't know what harm can come from it.
Well, on today's show, we've got a lot to get to. We've got a new Madison Southern cheerleading coach. We will have a statement from her on the show today. We've also got some local baseball players that are playing some AAU or out there doing good things. We'll give you some stats and some things that are going on there. Some high schools have had to shut down practices because of COVID-19, so we'll give you an update there. And we'll also talk to Jordan Markham, the head football coach over in Estill County, about what his team is doing or what not they're doing right now because of the coronavirus. But, Jamie, appreciate you being with me here tonight. And it seems like as we get closer to sports, there's more and more worry about getting closer to sports.
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing rising cases in a lot of states right now, and we're seeing conferences in college football make decisions to cancel seasons, postpone seasons. Junior colleges put football off to the spring, and everything's changing so quickly. We had this period in March and April where every day was a new world, and then we were kind of stagnant there for a couple months, and now things, I feel like, are changing again. And it's just so hard to find out what sports are going to be like until we're there, until there's a start date. And the day before that start date, I'll believe it's going to happen.
Yeah. So, last week on the show, you and I talked about the KHSAA and how they're going to function with it. We don't have football and other sports that help make them money and help make the schools money. How can we do all this? And going back to the big meeting they had on Friday where they put forth more guidelines for teams and schools, and the commissioner, Julian Tackett, said this: if our state wants high school sports, you're going to have to do the CDC recommendations on masking, on distancing, on hand washing. That's it. And he said, you're making a choice regardless of your motivation, whether it's political or otherwise. You're openly saying, I don't want us to get back to normal as fast as we could when you defy these guidelines that have been set forth. So even the commissioner is saying, hey, if you guys have a son that plays high school sports, if you have a friend that has a son that plays high school sports, if you just like watching high school sports, put a dang mask on and let's try to fight this virus and let's get these cases going down. I think the death total or the death tally has still kind of stayed the same, but the rise in cases has been the biggest issue. And we don't want to see this thing spread any more than we've already seen it spread.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were expecting at that Friday meeting to come out with a plan. We're flipping football and baseball. We're only playing conference games. We're shortening the schedule. We're delaying the season. But it was kind of a decision to make a decision later.
Yeah.
Which it sounds like that's what a lot of college conferences are planning to do too. Toward the end of July, to kind of make your decision then, and then go with it until we have new information is all we can really do.
The only thing that I think is for certain right now is if we do have football, it will be delayed. There will not be an official start. Like I think the first game is the last or the second to last Friday or Saturday in August. It's not going to be that way. There will be a delayed season no matter what they say on the end of July meeting they're having. I think July 28th, July 29th maybe is whenever they're having their next meeting to give further guidelines. So what they are saying right now is these schools are having limited practices. Those will remain in effect until at least August 2nd. So limited practices for high school fall sports in Kentucky, except for golf, will continue. And the KHSAA said in their meeting on Friday that is kind of their plan going forward. And Julian Tackett said it does not appear wise to take any steps toward allowing more activity than has been allowed since June 29th when they announced, hey, you guys can practice. There's no dead period right now. They're getting rid of that this summer. You can have limited practice, which basically means you can condition, you can lift weights. I don't think they're allowed to pass balls or anything right now, but it's pretty much very, very strict rules on what you are allowed to do. The KHSAA also voted Friday to limit athletes to 6 hours of practice per week through August 2nd, which means I think basically you can have 6 hours a week in football, 6 hours a week in basketball, 6 hours a week in baseball. So for athletes that are playing more than one sport, you get those 6 hours per sport. So if it's football, maybe an hour a day. If it's basketball, you can break that up however you want to, but that's kind of what the rules are set forth now. And Tackett said our goal is starting school on time. That's where we have to keep our focus. We want to minimize exposures. So they're trying to find a way to get school started on time. Then they'll figure out the sports aspect of it.
Which a lot of schools have already pushed back their start dates. Many are not starting until after Labor Day. Here in Madison County, it's been pushed back to August 26th. And even that, like most school systems have a plan to have kids in school at least a couple days a week. But there's a lot of pushback on doing any of that now. Teachers are worried about getting sick. You have a lot of older teachers, maybe not in great health. Are we really going to force them into retirement or allow them to teach virtually? So many questions about school. And yeah, I guess once we figure school out, we'll know more about sports. But how many of those school mandates are going to go over into sports? Because if you're within 6 feet of each other at school, you're supposed to wear a mask. What are you going to do when your football locker is next to somebody?
Yeah.
Or basketball?
It's just it's really hard to figure all this out. So we talked about football, and that's been our biggest focus is football because we do a lot of the games live here on WBOM. But the practice delay mandate that they put out likely will affect the first competition dates for field hockey, cross country, soccer, volleyball, all of which had been scheduled to begin in August. The first high school football games, again, are scheduled for August 21st. Those are the first dates for football games in August. So, again, we probably won't see any games in August. We're probably looking at September. So you might miss those first couple of games. And, again, last week I had the idea, and what I thought they would do is go down to a district-only game schedule and maybe allow the teams to play one more game. So that's still a possibility. And we're still seeing a lot of virus spikes in a lot of counties, and even here in Madison County. I think last week, from the Wednesday before through this past Wednesday, there were like 50-something cases. So, I mean, it's really starting to spike here in Madison County. And we're seeing a lot of people dealing with the virus at home, not taking up hospital rooms or hospital beds, but still the virus is spreading. And that's the biggest concern going forward is the people that are catching it right now, they are handling it very well, but what happens if a kid gets it who's also got another sickness, or an elderly person gets it who also has another sickness? So that's a big thing that we're seeing that we are dealing with right now.
It is. And the KHSAA, everybody making decisions right now is in a tough spot, right? If you choose to cancel sports, how much money are you costing your organization? Like, it's a lot of financial stuff. You're putting kids in situations where maybe they can't get scholarships they would have gotten otherwise. So many impacts to canceling sports, obvious health impacts to having sports. I saw one report from Friday's meeting where the KHSAA was considering changing the rule that football and basketball players cannot participate in activity outside of their school teams during the season. So you can't play AAU basketball during basketball season or all-star football or whatever, to try to keep those outside influences away. But if they're not playing football or basketball, are they going to keep that rule in place? Tackett said that they usually don't have a lot of support from schools to change that because they want those influences away from their kids. They want control and over their developing their players. But if you're not letting them play, you're really going to hold them hostage and not let them play otherwise. But at the same time, making that decision is almost encouraging kids to go and get out there and play in other states, which is another health risk. So there's there's no good options.
If we don't have football, I would be shocked if we didn't see a lot of these kids transfer out of state. I mean, if football, if sports, and it shouldn't be this way, but a lot of parents and a lot of kids, they treat sports more important than they do school. So
yeah.
So we might see a lot of these kids say, well, if you're not going to let me play football here, I'll go somewhere else and play. So I think we could see a huge, huge spike in transfers if the KHSAA says no sports here. Well, we'll rent an apartment in Tennessee and take our kids down there and play until the end of football season, and we'll come back home. Something like that could be a big issue as well. So I don't know what the answer is, but if you delay all these sports too, then we might be able to get a clearer picture. But what they did say in their meeting Friday as well, Jamie, is that golf, for folks that are playing golf, because of the natural social distancing that goes on with golf, you can kind of, drive your own carts, you can use your own clubs. The golf will be allowed to continue on schedule with first practices beginning July 15th and first competitions on July 31st. And Tackett said the KHSAA Board of Control could meet again in late July, perhaps July 28th, to consider recommendations for August and beyond. He noted that some fall sports could be delayed longer than others based on recommendations from the governor's office and the Department of Health. So golf can play. You can play golf starting on Wednesday. We got 2 days away from golf really getting out there, getting practice going. And, Kyle Congleton, Ricky Joe Benton over in Estill County, those guys can get to work with their teams and get ready for the season. Everything else is delayed. And, I mean, listen, whatever it takes, I would rather have 5 football games than none. If that means we got to wait until September or October, I'm fine with that. We just want sports. We want everybody to be healthy, but we want to see sports as well. We want to see these kids get out there and do what they do best.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because in May and June, we were saying, hey, let's start football early while it's hot, so it'll kill the virus. And now we're pushing it back to when it's colder. I think it just kind of highlights the fact that everybody's flying by the seat of their pants right now.
Yeah, it's the unknown factor, which we continue to talk about every single week. We don't know anything more than we knew a couple of weeks ago, it seems like, with this virus, or a couple of months ago, other than the fact that maybe it's not as deadly with kids or a mask can help you. I mean, those are really the only things that we've learned in the last 4 or 5 months with the coronavirus that's been going on, is just basically how to cope with it. I mean, that's really been the biggest thing. In other news from the KHSAA, they voted to suspend Bylaw 5 requirements for the fall, which focuses on academic progress requirements and a first day of school credit check. Tackett said some schools were concerned some athletes would not be academically eligible this fall because of pandemic-related issues during the spring and summer. There could be the unintended consequence that an athlete would not have been academically eligible this fall and got lucky on this. But the flip side is that a number of kids did everything possible and can't make the threshold. So that's, if you've got a lot of kids that can't afford a laptop or can't afford, internet at their house, those kids have kind of fallen behind because they've had to do some stuff at home that they can't really do and keep up with the kids that can't afford all this stuff. So that was a big issue about being at home and kind of falling behind.
Yeah, I think on situations like that, whether it's kids transferring, kids getting behind on credit, especially what's happening now, if that's a tough decision, you need to err on the side of letting the kids play.
Yeah.
There aren't millions of dollars at stake in these games. This is high school, middle school ball. We need to let the kids play and err on that side when those decisions come up.
Well, last week we talked about the KHSAA possibly having to go bankrupt if they didn't have money for all these sports. He did say that the KHSAA got about $55,000 from boys and girls Sweet 16 ticket holders who didn't seek refunds after the March tournaments were canceled, and those people pretty much just donated their money, which was a big deal for the KHSAA. He said financially we're okay right now. We're not in danger of having to shut down next week. So that's a big deal from the KHSAA as well, not having to be concerned with the money aspect for now. So, if there's no state tournament football games, or if we have to go through no basketball season again, then there could be an issue. But for now, the KHSAA is fine. And we're, again, basically looking at another 2 weeks before we get another idea of what football season will look like, if there is one.
Yeah, that's very fortunate. Honestly, surprising that they're okay financially. And as we get further into this, if they're not games, I hope we can say the same thing about athletic departments at schools, since they're not bringing in ticket money, concession money. I hope they're able to maintain or stay afloat, because it's not only, if there's no football, it's not only football that suffers. Then are you going to have equipment for your tennis team and those kinds of things? And that's high school, college as well. It's some of these bigger sports fund everything, and if they don't happen, which they're the most imminent, right? Like football season should start next month. Basketball should start in October, but if they don't, the schools are going to be in a bind.
Yeah, I don't know what basketball is going to look like, but I've heard that it could even possibly get pushed back. We might see a 3-month or a 2-month run for football, depending on when it starts. And then once football season is over, then they'll focus on basketball. So it might not be where we have a clear idea of what basketball looks like until football season is over with.
That's probably the right decision. Just take it a day at a time, take it a season at a time. Yeah.
All right, Jim, it's time for our first commercial break. We appreciate you all hanging out with us. I want to say thank you to our great sponsors like Bishop Small Engine Repair, Wbontv on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond, Cumberland Valley National Bank, and the law office of Patrick O'Neill. When we come back, lots more to get to, some more high school sports stories. There was one high school that had to shut down their practices because 9 players and a coach tested positive for COVID-19. And over in Estill County, Jordan Markham and the Engineers were forced to shut down their practice along with the other sports that were practicing as well because of the Madison County or the Estill County Health Department. So we'll talk to him about that later on in the show as well. Thank you for being with us, folks. We'll be back in just a moment. We are live on the sports show on Wbontv.com.
I'm Michelle.
And I'm Jennifer, and in the spring of 1992, Bishop Small Engine Repair was born in our mom and dad's barn in Estill County.
Then in the fall of 1992, we made the move to Madison County, where we are today. With the support of our family, customers, and community, we have continued to grow in the outdoor power industry. With a full line of products from Cupcadet, Grasshopper, Echo, and Shindawa, we can help you tackle your yard so you can enjoy it with your family. Bishop Small Engine Repair, where our focus is our customer. Stop on in, 119 North Estill Avenue in Richmond. We can't wait to see ya.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today, with no payments for 6 months and low rates. There's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
Patrick O'Neill has been serving Central and Eastern Kentucky since 1995. When someone is accused of something they didn't do, or when a good person makes a mistake, they need the best representation they can find. And that's Patrick O'Neill. Whether it's criminal defense, Social Security, disability, personal injury, workers' compensation, or deeds and wills, when you need legal advice, trust the expertise of Patrick O'Neill. He will get you the money you deserve. His office is located in Jackson, but Patrick practices all over Central and Eastern Kentucky. For more information or for a free consultation, call 606-666-2990.
Who makes the best meal in Richmond? Nuevo Vallarta. Friendly service, a place that's good for kids and good for groups. Head to Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond. Nuevo Vallarta is known for warm hospitality, great prices, great food, and the best margaritas and fajitas in town. Doesn't a huge 32-ounce ice-cold beer sound great? Start with an appetizer, order a la carte, or choose from their huge menu of Mexican favorites for grown-ups and kids. Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today, with no payments for 6 months and low rates. There's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
All right, Jamie, we are back here on the sports show. Glad to have you all along with us this evening as we talk some sports, and not a lot going on locally, obviously, other than some negative news. And one school has had to shut down everything because of a lot of positive tests of COVID-19, Hazard Independent High School is among the latest in Kentucky to suspend athletic team workouts, as 9 players and an assistant football coach have tested positive for COVID-19. And this is according to Kentucky.com. Scott Lockard, director of the Kentucky River District Health Department in Hazard, told the Herald Leader that voluntary athletic workouts were suspended for 2 weeks after a football player tested positive. And then on Friday, 8 other football players and an assistant coach tested positive, and they were all 10 sent home to quarantine. So nobody's so sick they had to go to the hospital. All 10 were able to go home and kind of fight the virus from home, being quarantined there. But this is just a big issue that we're seeing, and as I think the next 2 weeks come upon us, what the KHSA is really going to focus on is forget about, what the season is going to look like. What are we going to do if a player or multiple players or a coach test positive? I think that's going to be a big concern in these next 2 weeks, is how do you deal with positive tests?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a lot. 9's a lot of people. Yeah. Hazard, I imagine that's a 40, 50 member football squad.
Yeah. Single high school.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's like 20% of the team testing positive. And at that point, it's not only those 9 guys that have tested positive and the coach, but who have they been exposed to and who have they been around? I know a lot of schools are doing small group work and keeping people away from each other. Maybe they weren't exposed. Maybe they didn't expose anybody else. But that's the concern for the KHSAA. It may not be the 9 positive tests or whatever, but if we're practicing football to play football, people are going to be together and they're going to be tackling each other. They're going to be blocking. So what about the kids that you do test that it's not going to register yet, that they were just exposed and it hasn't taken enough to test, or the asymptomatic players or whatever? And I don't know the answer to that. If it's one kid, is it safe to say that if that kid sits out, like, I don't know when they're going to test, let's say they test on Wednesday and the game's Friday. If that test is positive on Wednesday, does that kid just sit out the weekend, or does the whole team forfeit? Where's the game postponed? Yeah, glad I don't have to make those decisions, Michael.
Yeah, I think it takes, 2 days maybe for your results to come back?
There's some tests that are coming back in 30 minutes. I don't know how.
Oh, okay.
I don't know the accuracy of some of that. We do have same-day testing capabilities now, but the reliability of those certainly isn't as good as those sent away to a lab.
So what I could see happening is maybe having testing on maybe Tuesday, and then you get your results back on Thursday. So if that player tests positive, then you sit him out for 2 weeks or however long you have to quarantine him. The issue is if you're testing him on Tuesday and you get your results back on Thursday and he has the virus, well, then there's been 2 days where he had the virus and he was around his teammates or around his coaches. So, I mean, I don't know how you figure that one out, Jamie, because it seems like it's just a lose-lose because the player had it. He's been around his teammates. Maybe it's the fact that you test him on Friday and then you get your results back on Monday and you can go through a full week without having to worry about it. I don't know what the right answer is. So maybe it's twice a week you test. No idea what the correct answer is there.
And it seems like we're in a good place with testing right now, that it's readily available. You're being encouraged to go and get tested for no reason, just to know if you're asymptomatic or whatever. So I feel like we're in a good place for that. I know it was awkward at first when athletes were getting tested and tests we had a big shortage in that. But I think we're past that. So I do think we probably have the ability to test players regularly. Now, again, what are the numbers on that? I don't know how many high school football players there are in the state, but you also have to test the trainers, the coaches, probably the bus driver. Like, there's all these kinds of little details that you can forget and be like, oh, wait, the bus driver could get everybody sick. I don't know. Just so much.
Well, I'll say this. So I have a mask that I've been wearing that it goes around your neck and then you pull it up over your mouth and your nose when you go into somewhere. And to me, it's more of like a mask that you can wear to go running in, or a mask that you can wear just whatever. And I've seen a lot of places that have like a cold mask where you can put it on to go running in the cold and it helps you breathe into the cold. So maybe things like that are what these schools are going to have to invest in for this football season. For one of the ones like I have for the summertime, to keep your face and everything, your nose protected so you don't spread the virus if you do have it. And maybe one of the winter ones for whenever it gets colder in like, October, November for football games. So that might be a case we see those schools having to purchase those for those players. And maybe you have to wear them during the game. I mean, it's you can breathe in them. They're breathable masks. They're not like some of the ones where it's hard to breathe in and out of them. So maybe you have to wear it even when you play and practice. That might be a case, and there might be some players that can't do that. But for the most part, if it keeps you and your teammates and the other team safe, maybe that's the only way we get football is having to have these players and coaches wear masks on the sidelines as well.
Yeah, I get that they're breathable masks. I just wonder how breathable are they? And you're already wearing a helmet, so how's the heat getting out of your body? Are we going to have kids overheating? I can't imagine people playing in masks. However, I've heard of Major League Baseball players that have committed to doing so. They've said, when we play games, I will be wearing a mask the whole time. I get that baseball is a little less strenuous for the most part. No constant running. You never run more than really 270 feet. But, that's going to be tough, especially for a lot of these kids. A lot of them have those medical issues. If they get an exception, does that mean they get to play without a mask, or does that mean they don't have to wear the mask, but they can't play? So way too many questions, way more questions than answers.
I'm going to be honest with you. I don't care if I'm wearing a mask or not. 270 feet sounds like a lot for me to run. Just throwing that out there.
That's a good point.
Well, we've got Estill County head coach Jordan Markham on the hook next. We're going to talk to him. And 6 days ago, he put up on his Facebook page concerning the Estill County shutdown of all athletics till July 20th. Our football kids and families are fine, and none of us are affected by COVID. There is other circumstances that have drove this decision. It's so hard to watch the work our kids have put in the past few weeks to see those gains be lost. I miss my guys and seeing them during the week, but we can't give up hope. Got to keep fighting and doing the right thing. That's a message I constantly preach to them. It will all work out in the end. So they had to shut down practice, not because of COVID-19, because somebody tested positive, but the Estill County Health Department put a stop to all athletic sports. It was a school and a health department decision, not because anybody tested positive. There are still only 4 positive cases in Estill County as of right now. So we'll talk to Coach Markham about that, kind of what his plans are as his team does get ready to come back next week, and just kind of get an update on what's going on over there in Estill County. So we'll talk to him next when we come back. We are live here on the sports show on Wbontv and on the radio stations of Wallingford Broadcasting. Back in a moment. Thanks for being with us.
I'm Michelle.
And I'm Jennifer. And in the spring of 1992, Bishop Small Engine Repair was born in our mom and dad's barn in Estill County.
Then in the fall of 1992, we made the move to Madison County, where we are today. With the support of our family, customers, and community, we have continued to grow in the outdoor power industry. With a full line of products from Kopudek, Grasshopper, Echo, and Shindawa, we can help you tackle your yard so you can enjoy it with your family. Bishop Small Engine Repair, where our focus is our customer. Stop on in, 119 North Estill Avenue in Richmond. We can't wait to see you.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today, with no payments for 6 months and low rates. There's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
Patrick O'Neill has been serving Central and Eastern Kentucky since 1995. When someone is accused of something they didn't do, or when a good person makes a mistake, they need the best representation they can find. And that's Patrick O'Neill. Whether it's criminal defense, Social Security, disability, personal injury, workers' compensation, or deeds and wills, when you need legal advice, trust the expertise of Patrick O'Neill. He will get you the money you deserve. His office is located in Jackson, but Patrick practices all over Central and Eastern Kentucky. For more information or for a free consultation, call 606-666-2990.
Who makes the best meal in Richmond? Nuevo Vallarta. Friendly service, a place that's good for kids and good for groups. Head to Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond. Nuevo Vallarta is known for warm hospitality, great prices, great food, and the best margaritas and fajitas in town. Doesn't a huge 32-ounce ice-cold beer sound great? Start with an appetizer, order a la carte, or choose from their huge menu of Mexican favorites for grown-ups and kids. Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today, with no payments for 6 months and low rates. There's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
All right, Coach Markham, we know it's been a crazy time. The KHSAA gave a little update this past Friday, but now you guys over in Estill County have had a couple of weeks since the shutdown, I think, was mandated by the health department over there. Just talk about kind of what happened there and kind of what you all have been doing as you prepare to get your team back next week.
Yeah, so they had a high number of pending cases. People that's went in and tested. It was like somewhere up to 32, I think, at once. For a smaller county, it's that percentage-wise, it's a little higher probably than some. So the health department just saw it was probably best for us to shut down for a couple weeks. I think some of the cases had involved some other students, possible student athletes, and was just probably thought it was safer to just go ahead and cancel for 2 weeks to just try to make sure everything has some time to smooth over, the whole 14-day quarantine type thing. Even though, none of the cases that were pending or anything was anybody related to football. And so that was a good thing on our part. None of our football families were involved or, any of our football kids were involved in the testing that are pending. So, which I think most of those have come back now, and I think they're all negative. And Estill County is still at four positive cases. So that's a really good thing. The county in general has done a really good job of keeping the spread down while still testing on a fairly consistent basis. So it's good.
Let's talk about what you and the team have been doing. I know you've been able to condition and kind of get in the weight room some. So talk about what you all have been able to do as you have been getting together with your team.
Sure. So we've been doing we talked about before the whole pods groups thing where we have, we've been working with 8 kids per group just because that fits our weight room size. And so here for the past 2 weeks minus last week, so really 2 weeks in general that we've been getting to work out. We've been in the weight room working out for 30 minutes. We've been out conditioning and doing some speed drills for 30 minutes. And then the other 30 minutes has just been kind of working on some football skill stuff, things where you don't really involve any kind of blocking pads or footballs or anything, just kids working on routes for our receivers, just, pretending they're catching a ball, which, it sounds kind of weird to say that they're pretending to catch a ball, but, they're getting that mental rep of seeing a ball, catching it, tucking it away, even without it being there, not worrying about actually having to catch it. So they're getting the focus on route running, precisely the way it needs to be done. So that part of it's been good for our skill kids. Running backs going through some drills with footwork and stuff. Quarterback's been doing some footwork stuff. Our offensive line has just been going through just, their skills of pulling and just the footwork from their aspect too. I mean, you can't take for granted all the little things that, in the seasons past, you kind of be like, well, I wish we'd have worked on this more at the beginning of the year when we had some time or when we didn't have pads on, when we didn't have a helmet on. This is that time. We get that time now to be able to work on some of those minute details that you kind of skip over once you get started with the season. And so, to be honest, it's been good, but it's also been frustrating because our quarterback can't really pick up a ball right now unless we go through a bunch of steps of cleaning the ball, the quarterback cleaning his hands and all that kind of stuff, that part of it's been frustrating, but we're going to get into a little bit of that when we get back. Of course, like I said, it's a little annoying, but just to get a chance to put the ball in the kids' hands are going to be good. So
how have the kids responded? I know, as a parent, you and I worry about being safe with the kids at home, and as a teenager, you got to worry about you got to worry about your acne. You got to worry about, your girlfriends. You got a lot more stuff that's going on when you're a teenager. So how have the kids responded to, dealing with the coronavirus and coming in, working out, and doing the drills?
I think they've responded really well. The kids have gotten a chance to be back together and just to get to have those face-to-face conversations and to talk about football, talk about life, to talk about everything that's going on. They've done a good job on, listening to what we say about, wearing their mask when it's appropriate, keeping our distance when we're supposed to keep our distance, and and the kids responded really well. You know, this has been the most important part of the whole process is just the kids getting together again. Yeah. You know, whether they don't, you know, they can't be high-fiving one another and, you know, pushing around on each other, joking around. I mean, we try to, you know, we keep that, try to keep that away. But you know, it's worked out really well for them. It's been really refreshing for us as coaches too. I mean, you know, we've, you know, not got to see the kids in quite a while. So being able to get back out there with them and be around them and just to get to joke with them and you know, just to talk about football it's been really good. So.
Well, I know the last time you and I talked, we were talking about the schedule, and it seems like now there's no way that the season's going to start on time. You might have a 7, 8, maybe even less than that game schedule. So talk about kind of how you're preparing for that, not knowing when the season's going to start, but knowing that you're probably not going to start on time.
You know, just kind of doing the same things that we've been doing, obviously, just continuing to lift and run and just get our bodies ready for when that time happens. You know, preparing a lot mentally is really important during this time because we're doing a few things different as far as offensively. So we're, you know, giving the kids some time to be able to, you know, go on huddle, check things out, seeing how things were being tweaked and whatnot. And, you know, we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And when we do get a chance to get back into it, you know, we're not going to rush and jump into things just because the season's shorter and we may be starting quicker or whatever the case is. You know, we just don't know. We're just going to keep doing things the right way, doing it the safest and best way that we can to prepare our kids. But, you know, like I said, the mental aspect of it is really important, especially during this time that, you know, we just don't know, you know, quite what's going on. So.
Well, when you guys start back up on the 20th, what are you going to tell your team, and what are you all going to do to get ready for a couple of weeks? So we still don't know. I guess July 28th is the next time the KHSA will get together and potentially give us an idea of when the season could start. So when you guys get back together on Monday of next week, what are you all going to be doing?
I mean, where we've missed 2 weeks of lifting and running, that's got to be, you know, priority. We have to do that. You know, in the KHSAA also laid down some time, you know, a maximum amount of time that we're allowed to spend during the week, you know, 6 hours. You know, we're hitting under that right now because we're only going 3 days a week. So we're at that about 4.5 hour mark for each of our pods, excuse me. So, you know, if we want to be able to kick it up another day, we can, and that will put us at our 6 hour limit, which would help us because it gives us more times to do things. But again, like I was saying, it's really hard when you can't easily throw the football around. You can't use blocking pads. Like, there's only so much you can do during your time. You know, you don't want to be doing stuff just to be doing it. You know, the kids have got to for sure get something out of it and not just going through the motions. So, you know, August 3rd is kind of their layout right now for when the season could potentially start back. But again, we don't know what that means. We don't know what that means to start back. Does that mean we throw all the rules out the window and start doing things as normal? I don't think that's going to be the case. But, you know, at the same time, it's like, well, you know, what are we going to do? And is August 3rd even going to be the true start day? I mean, that's just the date they've thrown out to say we should be able to get started by this point. And so from July 20th to basically August 3rd, we're just going to keep doing the things that we're doing. And like I said, we're going to try to incorporate being able to throw the ball some more, even though it's going to be a hassle to do. But it gives our quarterback at least, you know, something as opposed to just doing footwork drills and watching our receivers go through routes and stuff. So it's a tough time. It is. And our kids recognize that, but we just preach and preach and preach to continue to do the right thing, to get ourselves prepared, to get ourselves ready. And the biggest part of that is physically being ready, mentally being ready. And it doesn't mean that we have to be football ready. You know, just taking care of those two aspects are really important.
Coach, one last question before we let you go. Now, I know you've played football. You've been around football your entire life. What do you think about players wearing a mask while they play this year? I know myself personally, I've got one that, you know, I'm not very active now as far as, you know, running or doing drills or anything like that. But if I pulled it up, I feel like I'd be able. It's one of those ones like you wear if you go running or something. So
Yeah.
If your players had a mask like that, how do you think it would be for them to wear that while playing games or doing drills?
That's a tough question. Because so I've been working out at Plant Fitness, and since they put the mandate in on Friday, you have to walk in with your mask on. You don't necessarily have to wear your mask as you run or as you lift. I wore my mask in. I didn't wear it while I was running, but I did just keep it on while I was lifting because I didn't want to take it on and off.
Yeah.
And I did not like during the lifting part of it. It didn't really affect me too much. But I could tell, like, if my heart rate was starting to pick up and I was starting to breathe a little heavier, it did cause some difficulties, but it wasn't drastic. No,
Yeah.
I'm not in good shape whatsoever, and our kids are going to be in a lot better shape than I am. And I don't think it would honestly have that much of an effect. And if that's something we have to do to play, I think our kids are going to do it because they want to play. And I think kind of maybe even investigating what is the best mask possible for kids to be able to play and it not inhabilitate them from being able to move, run, block, whatever the case is, and be hard of breath, but also is enough to protect them in any way possible. So I think that needs to be some major research that needs to be done as we kind of get into this, is to kind of see what is the best option. I know I get emails every day from different companies trying to sell us on something. Well, of course, now through this time, they're wanting to sell these face shields that go on the mask, on your helmet face mask. And that could be an option, but at the same time, that's going to be a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money that even, that we don't know we're going to have, because aside from not knowing if we're going to have a season or not, we don't know if fans are going to be allowed even at that point.
Yeah.
So the money becomes an issue, and you can't just, get these masks to wear for 1 year and be done with them. That's kind of what would happen, because hopefully, next year that this will not be an issue or as much of an issue. So you wouldn't need those masks anymore. So I don't know. It's a tough thing to think about, but I think if they want us to play, I think our kids are going to be okay with wearing a mask in some way. I would believe.
Coach, I think you're like myself. Whatever it takes for us to be able to get some sports back, we're all in for it. So hopefully that is the case. And for you folks, listen, if you like sports out there, if you want to see high school football back, put on your mask, do whatever you can. We all have little parts in this. Let's all do our little part and try to make sure we've got Estill County football, Madison Central football, and everything else whenever we come back in the fall. Or hopefully
Absolutely.
in a couple of weeks we'll have a better idea of what all this is about, Coach.
Absolutely. That's definitely, I think, people have a hard time with it, saying we have to do this, we have to do that. But if we're going to have things that are somewhat normal, we've got to do the things that are necessary and that are right. So, let's hope people get on that trend.
Well, Coach, I appreciate your time. Listen, you and the family stay safe, and I look forward to speaking with you again, hopefully soon, and hopefully we're previewing some football in a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on.
I appreciate it.
I'm Michelle.
And I'm Jennifer. And in the spring of 1992, Bishop Small Engine Repair was born in our mom and dad's barn in Estill County.
Then in the fall of 1992, we made the move to Madison County, where we are today. With the support of our family, customers, and community, we have continued to grow in the outdoor power industry. With a full line of products from Cupcadet, Grasshopper, Echo, and Shindawa, we can help you tackle your yard so you can enjoy it with your family. Bishop Small Engine Repair, where our focus is our customer. Stop on in, 119 North Estill Avenue in Richmond. We can't wait to see ya.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today, with no payments for 6 months and low rates. There's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
Patrick O'Neill has been serving Central and Eastern Kentucky since 1995. When someone is accused of something they didn't do, or when a good person makes a mistake, they need the best representation they can find. And that's Patrick O'Neill. Whether it's criminal defense, Social Security, disability, personal injury, workers' compensation, or deeds and wills, when you need legal advice, trust the expertise of Patrick O'Neill. He will get you the money you deserve. His office is located in Jackson, but Patrick practices all over Central and Eastern Kentucky. For more information or for a free consultation, call 606-666-2990.
Who makes the best meal in Richmond? Nuevo Vallarta. Friendly service, a place that's good for kids and good for groups. Head to Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond. Nuevo Vallarta is known for warm hospitality, great prices, great food, and the best margaritas and fajitas in town. Doesn't a huge 32-ounce ice-cold beer sound great? Start with an appetizer, order a la carte, or choose from their huge menu of Mexican favorites for grown-ups and kids. Nuevo Vallarta on Big Hill Avenue in Richmond.
Get the money you need now. Apply for a home equity line of credit at Cumberland Valley National Bank today with no payments for 6 months and low rates. There's never been a better time to tap into your home's equity.
Back here on the sports show, Jamie Boggs, Michael Watkins here with you on this Monday night. We appreciate everybody hanging out with us and talking local sports. There's not a whole lot going on, but we do have a update on a new head cheerleading coach over at Madison Southern. Becky Mobberly has been named the head coach of the cheerleading squad. Her daughter is going to be an assistant coach and help her. And Becky, of course, is the mom of Trent Mobberly, who I've become a big fan of. I put him on my Southern basketball team when we did our draft a few weeks ago, about a couple of months ago now, I guess. It seems like all our Mondays are running together. But Trent's a guy that was going to be a very good basketball player for Austin Newton and the Eagles this past year, but tore his ACL going into the summer of his senior year. So a tough loss for him, and the team was not able to play this past year. But he's a guy that is a really good kid, lost a lot of weight to kind of get his body in basketball shape, and then, of course, again, his tore his ACL going into his senior year. So Becky is his mom, and she has taken over as the cheerleading coach, and she told me she was not able to do a Zoom call with us to talk about the upcoming season or about her taking the job, but she did say this: I'm really excited to get to coach at the same school that I cheered at when the school first opened. I'm really glad to get to work with some of the athletes that I coached at Foley, and I'm hoping that COVID doesn't get in the way of my plans for them. So she's excited, Jamie, to get the team together and be able to work out. I've not seen any mandates as far as cheerleading goes, but I'm assuming that they'll probably have to follow the same guidelines as football does, because those two kind of go hand in hand. You're going to have cheerleaders on the sidelines for football games. So we'll kind of see how that goes. But this is a pretty cool thing locally to see a lady that cheered at Madison Southern herself back in the day, now taking over as the head cheerleading coach at her alma mater.
Yeah, and I think it's always cool to hire people who have that vested interest. They're a part of that school. Her son was a star of the team his junior year and slated to be that his senior year as well. So that's really cool for her. And I imagine that cheerleaders will have to follow the same guidelines, but there's a lot of things you can do for that type of competition and performance. They can still do a lot of individual tumbling. They can probably work on dance routines and space out. I imagine the tossing and pyramid type things will be the bigger challenges, but I would think that's a sport you could do a lot with.
Can you do a cartwheel?
I do a phenomenal cartwheel.
I do too, man. We should maybe see if Coach Mobley would let us come out there and do some cartwheels. I know that she and Karen Feldhouse, who's been the longtime coach over at Madison Central, they would probably say that we're doing it wrong. But listen, if I can flip over and do what looks like a cartwheel, I'm going to claim that I can do one. So. Oh
yeah. I haven't tried it in a couple of years. I could do a front handspring. My wife bet me that I couldn't, and it was the dinner decision. If I could do a front handspring, we would go to a certain restaurant. I'm not going to mention names because they're not sponsors. And if not, we could go to her choice. And I totally won. And she has. It was a very prideful day for me.
Oh, hey, listen, if you bet the wife on something and you win, you got. Yeah. My wife, like, sometimes when we do that, she just doesn't pay up. Like, she still gets to pick the restaurant, and then she still gets to, not do the dishes or whatever the bet is. So yeah. there's some stuff that goes on there that I win and I still lose somehow. But we do have some more updates locally. Got some baseball players we've seen been doing some cool things. The 2020 PGBA 15-16 under battle in the Bluegrass, the tournament MVP pitcher award goes to Thomas Forehand, who was a freshman this past year at Estill County. He had a really good run, and he was the tournament MVP pitcher. and he's a 2023 right-handed pitcher out of Estill County. And Thomas is a kid that I actually coached in basketball a few years ago. Really good kid, good football player, and he's going to be he's a really good baseball player. That's his primary sport, but he was a good basketball player, a good football player for Coach Markham, and he's showing what he can do on the baseball diamond as well. So he's a guy that's getting some love on the baseball field. Also, Aiden Carter from Madison Central had a good game over the weekend, had an RBI triple to take the lead for good against KBC West in a game from the Mid-America Prospects. They were talking about him. And then also we've seen John Gerard out of Madison Central. I had 4 innings pitched, 0 earned runs, and struck out 3 for the Lexington War Eagles baseball team. So a couple of kids we've seen playing some AU baseball and just getting some of their names out there with no past baseball season. We're seeing a lot of these kids go out there and play some sports and some baseball in other states or other tournaments and doing really well at it.
Yeah, the last 2 weeks it's kind of opened up in Kentucky. There have been tournaments around the state that local teams could participate in, and teams from around here go and do really well. And it's interesting the level of baseball. I played baseball throughout high school into college, and that with the number of repetitions that players get now throughout the summer, some of these 14 and 15-year-old teams are better than any high school team I ever played on. And these are all 8th graders and freshmen. So the level of play at some of these places, you can go and see some really good talent anywhere that you go. Hopefully, we'll see what happens. I worry that we may play our last tournament for the summer in Kentucky, but I guess we'll wait till Friday and see.
Well, one thing that we don't talk about enough here, we've got a really rich tradition with basketball at Madison Central. We've seen a lot of really good players play football over at Madison Southern and basketball at Estill County over the last few years. But consistently, the last 10 to 15, 20 years, and going back even further at Madison Central with baseball, we have seen a really consistent tradition and strong programs on the diamond, not only here in Madison County, but over in Estill County. I mean, their softball team for the longest time absolutely owned the 14th region softball tournament. I mean, it seemed like every year they were going ahead and pre-booking their reservations at the same hotel they stayed at every single year over in Estill County. And then in baseball, I mean, when Danny Wood was there's a reason he's a Hall of Famer. The guy that does the Estill County sports here with us, he has had a lot of success over there on their baseball program. We've seen that continue with, Brian Crow was the head coach. Now it's his son, Blake, who took over, who didn't get to have his first season. And then over at Southern, I mean, the baseball and softball teams had huge, high expectations going into this past year. And obviously the COVID virus took that away from them. But we have got maybe our best athletes. You consider all the sports that we have, our best athletes that we cover could possibly be playing baseball and softball because of the teams that we have.
Yeah, I agree. I think universally that's it may not be the best sport at each school, but if you were to kind of tier it, every school seems to do well in those areas. And I've always been a fan of Coach Roof. I've taken my kids from Central to a lot of his camps. Jason Langfell's at Southern. If he stays there for a few years, that's going to be a powerhouse program. So, and things are looking up. It has been good. You're right, for a long time, and it's going to keep getting better. Just and thankfully those are spring sports. So hopefully by then we will have figured some stuff out.
Yeah, we missed out this past year, but hopefully those sports can continue on their uptick, and seeing some of these kids play AAU sports will give them an idea of kind of what the next season will look like and get some experience heading into next year. But we do have one more thing to get to before we go off the air, Jamie. So I saw on Twitter last night that a UK football parent had tweeted out that after testing 161 athletes and staff associated with football, that there were 0 positive COVID-19 tests with the Kentucky football team. That's a huge deal. We've seen Clemson with big numbers, LSU, Alabama, Auburn. All these colleges have high spiking coronavirus numbers. And for the University of Kentucky to test 161 players and coaches associated with the football team and to have no positive test, that's a really big deal. And a blessing, basically, considering that all the other schools are having positive tests.
Yeah, several things there. One, we kind of talked about how Kentucky didn't test players as they came back. and they got beat up a little bit for that. So I think that makes it even more surprising that there were no tests. In the last few weeks, our rate has been close to 4% of tests are positive, and to see 0 there is great. The third thing is that was Chance Porsmom, who is one of the field goal kickers for Kentucky, and I cannot think of a worse name for a kicker that on the roster it says Poor Chance.
Well, we've had some issue with kickers in the past at Kentucky, so hopefully his Poor Chance is a good one for Kentucky football fans. And hopefully we have college football. That's a big thing, too. It's not really been discussed as canceling this season, but we're seeing a lot of stuff come about. Like I think the Big Ten hasn't announced yet, or maybe they did announce they're going to do conference-only games. So if that's the case,
Pac-12 did as well.
Ohio State, Michigan State, all those big schools, Penn State over in the Big Ten, that could be only playing their conference opponents. So that we could see other conferences fall in line with that if that is the case. So we will update you on that on our show next week. We appreciate you hanging out with us. He's Jamie Boggs, the morning show host over on 106.7 The Pinnacle, every weekday morning from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. You can catch him live on 106.7 The Pinnacle. I'm Michael Watkins. We appreciate you hanging out with us, folks. Listen, wear your mask, wash your hands, stay safe, and help us get sports back in the fall. And let's look forward to getting, again, hopefully some kind of normalcy back in the next couple of months. Jamie Boggs, Michael Watkins, we appreciate you hanging out with us here on the Sports Show on WBONTV and the stations of Wallingford Broadcasting.